My name is Jessica Finn. I'm the membership manager at NFRC. We're really excited to have everyone today for our webinar from DOE Advanced Manufacturing Office. They'll be discussing no-cost, efficiency, and sustainability tools and resources. And before we get started, just a couple things to remember. We will be recording the webinar. We'll send that the link to that we'll send the link out to everybody after the presentation. And if you do have questions throughout the presentation, please just put them in the question panel on GoTo. And at the end of the presentation, we'll take some time to answer all the questions. And thank you to our sponsor for today's webinar, Quanex Building Products. We have a brief video from Quanex, so thank you for your attention to the video. All right, so thank you again to Quanex for their sponsorship. And also we want to thank all of our founding sustainability sponsors. And if you do have any questions about our sponsorship opportunities, please just let me know. Now I just would like to introduce our presenters for today. We have Bruce Lung, who will be starting off. He is from the DOE Advanced Manufacturing Office. And we also have John Smeagol from the DOE Advanced Manufacturing Office. And then to wrap up the presentation, we have Morris Lear from Custom Glass Solutions. So I will go ahead and hand it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Jessica. This is Bruce Lung from DOE's Advanced Manufacturing Office. You go to the next slide, please. Okay, well, thank you. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Better Plants program and our newest program, the Better Climate Challenge. Just to give you a quick background, I've been supporting the DOE since late 1990s, and more recently been directly involved in the Advanced Manufacturing Office since 2015, supporting mostly Better Plants, but as well as some of the other technical partnerships programs. Better Plants, some of y'all may have seen it in the news for a while. It's been around since 2009, and it started out mostly as a energy intensity voluntary program to help manufacturers improve energy intensity, mainly energy productivity. Since then, we've kind of branched out to other sustainability resources, particularly water efficiency, waste reduction, and more recently CO2 decarbonization, based on requests from our partners who are interested in getting technical assistance in these areas. Next slide, please. Basically, the way it works, there's no cost to join. The companies that join the program will commit to an ambitious goal. In the case of the Better Climate Challenge, about 50% greenhouse gas reduction in 10 years for Scope 1 and 2 emissions. And then for Better Plants, usually 25% in 10 years on energy intensity. Once the company joins, they'll get access to the full portfolio of our technical assistance resources, networking opportunities, recognition opportunities, and then access to innovation. Next slide, please. Right now, I'm displaying the logos of what we call the Better Plants Challenge partners. And I'll take a quick minute to explain what that means. In 2009, when the program launched, there was one pathway. Companies would join, they got technical assistance, and then they worked towards the goal. 2 years later, the program changed they were included in the Better Buildings Initiative, and the people who started that program expected that they would also work with the industrial sector. So rather than create a whole new program, they grabbed the existing one, and then we became part of that Better Buildings Initiative. The only thing is the other organizations that were joining, universities, property management companies and such, they were joining as challenge partners, which meant that in addition to setting a goal, they also agreed to work with us on case studies, to be transparent with their data, to be available for speaking opportunities. We already had about 60 companies in the program at that point, and we couldn't go back to them and say, now you'll have to do all this extra stuff. So we made it an option, and it's an option for every company that wants to get in the program. They can either join at the program level or the challenge level. And these are the logos for the challenge partners in Better Plants Challenge. It tends to appeal to the larger consumer-facing companies that want the extra publicity and that have the time and bandwidth to work with us on these extra communications activities. But any company is eligible to be in either Better Plants Challenge or Better Plants Program. Next slide, please. And this kind of gives you an idea of the broader program base. Basically includes a wider group of manufacturers. In some cases, a lot of smaller companies, medium-sized manufacturers that simply want technical assistance, and for them, the recognition opportunities are not quite as important. But all the partners in the program benefit from all the technical assistance we give them, as well as all the other workforce development, networking, and access to innovation opportunities. The next slide is going to highlight the companies that have joined the Better Climate Challenge. This is our newest program. It just launched last fall. And this is one that's really oriented for organizations that have greenhouse gas reduction goals, especially long-term greenhouse gas reduction goals. The nice thing is that by joining the Better Climate Challenge, they will functionally serve as Better Plants partners or be Better Plants partners because they'll have access to the same kinds of technical assistance on energy that the Better Plants partners get, including a technical account manager, all the tools and trainings and everything else. So either way, you're going to be covered, whether you want to do greenhouse gas reductions or energy efficiency. Next slide, please. So why do organizations partner with us? We work in 4 main practice areas. Technical assistance is our original one, and that's the one that still yields the greatest value to the industrial sector. That includes everything from working with a technical account manager, using our software tools, diagnostic equipment, technical publications, and such. Workforce development is another big one. This is primarily done through what we call implant trainings, which are 3 to 4 day workshops, usually hosted by a partner at one of their plants. And we bring in a subject matter expert who will perform the training. We also offer a lot of online webinars and special trainings. There's a new one coming up called an Energy Boot Camp, and I'll talk about it a little bit as well. Recognition and networking is another big practice area for us. Originally, we were focused on recognizing companies when they meet the goal, but we've also added annual awards now, and we can also do things like trade press articles, more case studies, social media, that kind of thing. We also foster peer-based networking at our events. So there's a lot of opportunities there. And then access to innovation is something we've offered in the last several years, mainly because we had partners that had completed a lot of the operational or low-hanging fruit type activities, and they're looking for that next big thing that can help them make a step change in their energy performance. So we organized a National Lab Visit event every year where you can see new technologies being developed and talk with the researchers. We also offer a new initiative called Technology Validation, and this is particularly for newer technologies that maybe a salesperson is trying to get you to install in one of your plants, but you can't find a lot of performance data for it in the market. So we can bring in experts who will do a pre and post testing and give you an independent report on the actual performance characteristics of that technology. Next slide, please. Just a little digression on the technical account managers. They are the primary points of contact for each of the partners in the program, and they're all engineers. A lot of them are employees of the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, but some of them are also employed by consulting organizations like ICF International, and they will help the partners from the start to finish, everything from establishing the right metrics and baselines, tracking energy consumption, accessing tools, trainings, and even accessing resources that are outside the program. So they are from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and we really expect the partners to leverage them. Next slide, please. This kind of gives you an idea of the modeling capability that we offer and that the TAMPs can perform for the partners. In this case, we had a partner that joined in 2015. They used 2014 as a baseline year, and at the time that they joined, they told us that they were doing a major upgrade of their main manufacturing plant. So they gave us some of the energy estimates from their construction company and other vendors, and when we plugged them into our modeling software, we forecasted what their energy consumption would be in the year following the completion of the program, of the project. And lo and behold, when that year came around, their energy bills lined up very closely with our estimates. So they were pretty confident that they were going to meet the goal, and they certainly did. So that kind of gives you an idea of how we can help the partners forecast and plan ahead for their energy consumption and procurement. Next slide, please. The diagnostic equipment program is something that we decided to offer because we noticed that we had, first of all, we had plenty of diagnostic tools, but also we noticed that some of our partners were depending on nameplate or technical data sheets for information about the energy capabilities of their systems. And we wanted them to be able to get field data so that they have the more accurate information and be able to make more informed decisions about their energy efficiency investments. So we have a suite of over 20 different tools and instruments. It's basically kind of like the AutoZone program where you can go in and borrow a battery tester. In this case, we'll ship some kind of a diagnostic tool, whether it's a combustion analyzer or flow meter or amp meter, whatever you need to measure the industrial systems in your facility. And it will also give you technical assistance with them on the phone or by email. The nice thing is that a lot of our TAMs know how to use these tools because they did assessments, when they were in the industrial assessment program that John is going to talk about in a little bit. Next slide, please. One good thing about the diagnostic tools is that they can download information, and then that information can be ported directly into one of our system assessment software platforms that is contained within our Measure tool suite. Measure is our acronym for Manufacturing Energy Assessment Software for Utility Reduction, and it is basically one platform that contains multiple tools that you see on the right-hand side here, but it also includes over 70 calculators that you can use to get value. So the nice thing is that you can use any one of the tools on the right side, the steam, pumping, fans, motor systems, compressed air, process heating tools, but if you only have a couple data points, you can still get value and do some calculations, get some analysis. The other thing is that the new tools within Measure are a lot more user-friendly than the original tools, and they're also compatible with newer operating systems. And they're also open source, so if you need to configure them to your plant, you can certainly do so. Coming up later on this year, we're developing a dashboard tool. It's visualizing energy reporting and financial applications. And this will be a tool where you'll be able to do regression-based analysis of your baselines and track energy consumption. You'll also have access to return on investment calculators, so you don't have to go to another computer or another software platform to do those ROI calculations. Next slide, please. Workforce development is another big area for us, and this is something that we started out doing in 2011 with in-plant trainings on 5 topics, the main industrial systems found in manufacturing plants. Since then, we've expanded to include everything from refrigeration, energy efficiency in water and wastewater treatment plants, energy management, water efficiency, and also energy treasure hunts, which has become a very popular training. One of the things we're looking to do for this, during the pandemic, we had to make all of these virtual. So we created virtual versions of all these in-plant trainings on the website you see here. The nice thing is that they've all been recorded and you can access them at your leisure. We also are continuing to do these online trainings, so you can sign up for them if you want as well. One of the things we're looking to do this summer is an energy boot camp training, which will be a 3-day course that'll focus on industrial systems. And it's really oriented towards younger or newer energy managers who want to get a solid grounding on industrial systems. Next slide, please. We have several other initiatives that I'll talk through real briefly. The supply chain initiative is something we did in response to our partners that had sustainability requirements of their suppliers. So within this initiative, we can work with those suppliers, get them all ramped up on everything from energy management to baselines, and help them, meet the sustainability requirements of their downstream customers. The Water Savings Network is also something that we developed years ago in response to requests from our partners to help develop tools and resources on water efficiency. So this is something that's also available to our partners. And then more recently, we started working on a waste reduction pilot, which is now transitioned into a network. And so we'll work with partners that have waste or circularity type goals and help them improve their waste performance. One example, most recently, we developed a waste to energy calculator that people will be able to use to understand the energy content of the waste streams that go into some kind of a waste to energy process. Next slide, please. The access to innovation is something that we've also done a lot in the last several years. Our primary mechanism for this is what we call Technology Days, which is basically a structured visit of one of the national labs that we work with, particularly a lab that has a lot of industrial technologies. So we can do everything from, visit a 3D printing lab to labs that have, new combustion technologies, renewable energy technologies and such. It's a great opportunity to network with your partners as well as the experts at the lab, but also to learn how to enter into research agreements with the labs if you have your own research ideas. If we can pull it off this year, we'll be doing it at the Argonne National Lab near Chicago, Illinois, most likely in September, October. Next slide, please. The other part of our access to innovation is the field validation kind of initiative. And this is something that we also did in response to requests from our partners that were being bombarded by salespeople who wanted them to try some new technology. And so if there's not a lot of market performance data around that specific technology or material, we'll bring in some independent experts that will test it at scale in your facilities. And that way they'll take the risk out of associated with trying to implement it throughout the portfolio around your plants. They'll give you an independent report on how it performs, and that way you can decide if you want to go through with it and add it throughout the company. We've also opened it up this year in phase 2 to the vendor community. So if you have a vendor, you can also have them submit the application so that we'll test it at their location and do the same thing, and that way we can share the results with the rest of the community. Next slide, please. On the recognition, we amplify and do a lot of important national recognition for the Better Plants partners. The crystal trophy that we give is something that can be displayed in a corporate headquarters display case. And we also bestow this trophy by a high-ranking person at the DOE. So in this case, it was the Assistant Secretary for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, kind of like a senior vice president at a big corporation. The other thing I should mention is that this is the recognition we give to the goal achievers, and we've had 74 goals achieved by, I think, 65 partners. So some of them have actually met it more than once and have doubled down. So next slide, please. Some of the characteristics of goal achievers that we published a report last year on this, and we found some things in common, particularly engaging their management and getting funding from that management, using data-driven approaches to validate what they've done and to get more support internally for more sophisticated projects. They've also engaged colleagues from other departments. It's very difficult for one energy manager in a company with several thousand people to try and get things done. But if that energy manager engages the production teams, maintenance, and other stakeholders within the organization, that's when they're able to form coalitions and really make a lot of energy savings happen. Another big feature was their communicating of their successes. This is something that a lot of the corporate communications departments like because it gives us something to tout about. And also leveraging DOE guidance. One of the things we found during this research effort is that a lot of the TAMs were critical in helping guide companies into the resources that would help them make a big impact quickly. So next slide, please. This gives you another idea of the recognition that we offer. These are the certificates we bestow for the annual award winners. We offer Better Practice and Project Awards, and as the name suggests, Better Practice Awards are for best practices that facilitate the organization's ability to save energy, water, waste, decarbon, that kind of thing. And then the Project Awards are for major projects that have large dollar savings as well as big energy, water, and waste savings, and so forth. So next slide, please. The Better Building Solution Center is our website, and so this is where we keep all the information related to the program, all the partner profiles, all the upcoming events, all the case studies, and so forth. We even have a financing navigator so people can look for financing solutions if they want to. So it's really a big one-stop shop, and we encourage folks to leverage it for their needs. Next slide, please. So we also have some complementary programs in the Advanced Manufacturing Office, and I'm not going to spend any time on the IECs because John's going to cover those, but we do offer help with cogeneration, waste heat recovery through our technical assistance partnerships. These are centers around the country that offer free technical assistance to organizations that have big thermal loads and that are interested in these kinds of technologies. We also have 2 programs related to the ISO 50001 Energy Management Standard. The 50001 Ready program is kind of the self-starter, kind of do-it-yourself type of thing, where you're guided through an online tool called the 50001 Ready Navigator. And once you finish the 25 tasks in that navigator, you'll have about 90% of all that you would need to conform with the standard, and you'll also be eligible for DOE recognition. The Superior Energy Performance Program is for companies that want to certify their facilities to the standard, as well as to validate the energy savings that they achieved during the time that they were developing their energy management system. So a lot of different ways that you can get value from AMO here. Next slide, please. So I'll make a quick plug for our annual conference, the Better Buildings, Better Plants Summit, coming up here in Washington, D.C., May 17th through 20th. This is a really good opportunity to come into D.C., learn from your peers, as well as subject matter experts. We have a full industrial track with 3 interactive sessions, as well as an Ask the Expert booth. So it'll be a really good opportunity for stakeholders from a variety of different end-use organizations. And it will also be the keynote address will be given by Ms. Gina McCarthy. So, next slide, please. This is our contact information. John O'Neill is the program manager, and I work closely with him at the DOE. Excuse me. And Clifton Yin is our communications specialist. So this is a particular website on our webpage. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to John.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Did you want me to jump right in? I'm hoping that everyone can hear me. I noticed the last time there was a little bit of audio wiggles, but nothing too bad. So I'm assuming everyone can hear me. My name is John Smeagol, and I manage the Advanced Manufacturing Office Industrial Assessment Center program, and I've done so for a little more than a dozen years now. Now that may sound like a long time, but realistically, it's a relatively short period of time given the program's history. It's been around for more than 40 years. In fact, the program itself predates the Department of Energy. It started off in Commerce for a couple of years and then was transferred to Department of Energy when, in fact, the Department of Energy was founded in the 70s. So let's talk about where we are right now. Next slide. So this map here shows, although it's rather small, but that's okay. When you have that many centers, everything gets really small. We have currently 32 industrial assessment centers located across the country, as well as 7 satellites that are associated with those 32 centers. With satellites are often set up to enhance the geographic coverage because we need to get out and cover a rather significant area, especially out west. So we will have satellite centers that are affiliated with the main center. We recompete the centers every 5 years. We have just completed one of our recompetes in the middle latter part of 2021, and we're getting these centers up and running, and they will operate as centers for the next 5 years until we recompete again. There is also a technical field manager that helps us administer and oversee and provide quality assurance, quality control. They do some surveillances, they maintain the database, they do a bunch of sort of programmatic functions. That's Rutgers University. So they're technically, although they're on the map, they're not actually an IEC, they're the IEC field manager. Very critical role, but not conducting assessments. Obviously, you can tell from the map that IECs are university-based, engineering-oriented. We do assessments of small and medium-sized manufacturers, essentially. We provide energy efficiency assistance, productivity improvement recommendations. We also cover recommendations governing waste reduction and water use reduction as appropriate. While we're doing these assessments, we're essentially training the next generation of energy engineers using an applied engineering non-classroom learning sort of platform. Next slide. Okay, so how do we do this? Senior directors, they are tenure track professors of practice within usually mechanical or industrial engineering programs. These are not field trips. The students actually are employees, and that's important because what that enables the students to do is they basically take a lead role on the assessments, and they are out and about throughout the factory as we move through the day, doing measurements, identifying opportunities, looking for potential problems with respect to all the processes. And so it enables us, because they're not just students on a field trip with a factory or with a faculty leader, they're actually fully engaged, involved in all aspects of it. As I indicated, this is an implied learning environment using a team concept, which is student-led develops critical thinking, problem recognition, opportunity recognition realistically, because in this context, problems are opportunities, as well as, an enormous set of soft skills, team management, report writing, communication, all that sort of stuff that goes along with a student-led assessment opportunity. We do these in a one-day situation. That's one of the reasons why this is a low-cost program, which is another reason why we're able to do these assessments for free for small and medium-sized manufacturers, because they tend to be located within ballpark about 150 miles of a particular center. And that's basically so that we can drive there within a couple hours, do the assessment, and then at the end of the day, make it home. So we, again, that whole regional coverage or structure is based on a low-cost model approach to conducting these assessments. Essentially, in terms of our clients, I indicated we're dealing with SIC codes 21 through 39. We're dealing with folks with annual sales under 100 million, less than 500 employees. We're looking for folks that don't have the resources realistically to do this kind of thing themselves, either in-house or they don't have the financial wherewithal to go ahead and contract with an ESCO or some other private entity to go ahead and do the assessment on their behalf. So that's why we are targeted the small and medium-sized folks. Next slide. Okay. About 2 months or so, well, 2 months, 60 days realistically, after the assessment is conducted, we generate a formal report, which is, this is not a brochure. The reports range anywhere from 90 to 120 pages with technical appendices. They contain specific operational details. They have a focus. They provide payback periods, recommendations, estimated savings. It's a rather extensive report, which is why it takes a fair amount of effort to generate these things. There's also a period prior to us even hitting the floor of interacting with the site, getting details on operations, getting details on utility bills, electricity, natural gas, fuel oil, whatever else they're using. We also get a feel for the layout of the facility, understand exactly what they're making and how they make it. That's like a week or two before we actually hit the site, and then there's the assessment itself, which, as I said earlier, is 1 day focused, and then the report about 60 days later. And then about 9 to 12 months after that, the report is delivered. We reach back to our clients and get a feel for which of the recommendations, we call them ARs, assessment recommendations, that they have in fact implemented, and that's goes into our tracking and metrics of the program, which I'll talk a little bit about later. Anyways, next slide. Okay, these are results that are changing every day because we do track these real time. We're almost up to 20,000 assessments, and typically, between 7 and 9 is hard recommendations per assessment. So we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 150,000 recommendations over the history of the program. Average recommended savings currently is somewhere in the neighborhood of 140,000. These are opportunities. And when it comes to actual savings, these are things that are implemented within the first 9 months. It's around $45,000. Now, this is an undercount because realistically, a number of activities are implemented after the fact. These also don't include, that is when I say after the fact, I mean after the assessment follow-up, the implementation call, because we will routinely make recommendations that are 1 to 2 year or 3 year paybacks, and those aren't often implemented within 9 months. But that's why I said that 45,000 figure is a conservative estimate. Also, doesn't include any persistence. We went through a period where we used to calculate that and present it, but there's so many methodological issues. We just present it as a 1 year. This is how much you're saving. But realistically speaking, those savings that we identify do carry over year after year. So we don't try to, although we probably should, come up with some sort of persistence factor. But they also realistically don't account for anything that's associated with the students and the benefits their activities engaged in terms of payback for the students themselves. And it's an important part of this, as I alluded to earlier. We are training the next generation of engineers in this applied learning platform that we're doing outside of the classroom. working with manufacturers generates a certain set of engineering skills that generally more than 50% of our IC graduates go on to pursue energy efficiency careers long term. Next slide. Okay. Every 5 years, we generate a list of emerging topics that are coming out, and because the assessments that we're doing now are very different than the assessments we started doing in the 1970s. So, for example, the last, not this most recent funding opportunity, but the one before that, 5 years before that, we identified cybersecurity risks as an emerging topic, obviously. And so we developed a cybersecurity screening tool that we deploy when asked. We make it available to anyone who's interested, and then we'll run through this. It's a fairly simple, we developed it with our colleagues at NIST MEP, and the idea is just really to do a triage type approach, identifying the most important parts of people, processes, systems that give you a sort of green, yellow, red hierarchical ranking of whether or not you're low, medium, or high in terms of risk. Again, the attempt is not to be a detailed cybersecurity protection device, but realistically to give folks an idea as to whether or not they really should pursue more advanced capabilities or resources to provide, you know, in the age of smart and connectivity and hacking and ransomware and all that sort of stuff, whether they should pursue additional resources, whether it's through our NIST colleagues or other entities. And I would say this, that realistically, when we started out on the cyber, it was it was quiet. I won't say it was crickets, but it was some interest. But now we're at the point after we started doing assessments, cybersecurity in 2017, 2018, and we're at the point now where more than half of our clients are actually asking for the cyber screening. So we're very encouraged from a fairly modest beginnings to being the point we're doing at least half, if not more. And we only anticipate those results to continue as we move forward. Next slide. This is another fairly simple, this is an attempt to reach beyond the folks that we provide assessments to directly. This IEC 101 is just that. It's sort of the basics of industrial processes, and it's broken down by commonly seen systems within facilities. So whether we're talking about compressed air systems or process heating or lighting, we take a look at a number of things. This is a list of modules that we have right now that are currently prepared. And these are somewhere between 10 and 15-minute tutorials that run through basic processes and things that folks should be looking for, opportunities for savings, opportunities for problems. And again, the goal is to essentially extend some of the benefits and the consulting expertise to folks who aren't in a position to actually receive an assessment, but go ahead and can log into the website there for IEC.university. At IEC 101 is just a technical resource that anyone can avail themselves of. Next slide. Okay, the IC database, obviously with this many assessments, this many results, this many recommendations, this is a publicly available database. The link is right there. It contains all kinds of information on facilities organized by SIC code or NAICS code, as you would have it. We provide implementation data, we provide recommendation data. You can cut it, slice it, search it by location. You can do it by industry. You can do it by, you know, like I said, recommendations. And this is an ongoing thing that's updated literally day by day. So the numbers that I provided earlier, about 19,000, if you went to the website right now and clicked on it, the first page would show you how many assessments we've done that have worked their way into the system. And I'm sure the number now is different than it was yesterday or the day before. So it's a real-time database. This is used in a number of different ways by researchers. It's used by academics. It's done by even folks who are looking for, if you are within a particular industrial, you know, classification, SIC, and you're looking for the kinds of recommendations that are often made to facilities like you can go ahead into the database and look and see what kind of recommendations are made and get an idea as to, again, ballpark. And again, it's trying to reach out to folks who aren't necessarily receiving an assessment, but the database is a publicly available tool for anybody, and it's a big part. The IEC program is a very data-rich program, and we continue to maintain it as such. All right, next slide. Okay, the IEC program was fortunate to receive a great deal of attention in the most recent bipartisan infrastructure law We are expanding the program rather significantly. We received $500 million of funding over the next 5 years. I can't go into the details largely because some of the details are unknown as to how we're specifically going to stand up these components, but those will be forthcoming in the months and longer than that as we move forward. Things that are within the legislation that are particularly of interest. There'll be up to 5 centers of excellence that are going to be identified within the existing centers that are going to be focusing on mentoring and coordinating and expanding the impact. A particular focus there is likely to be on-site generation and alternative energies. We are expanding the schools that we're going to be dealing with. So right now, the program is located within engineering programs at universities. Is a 4-year thing. We're expanding the program dramatically to include community colleges, trade schools, and union training programs. We are developing a nationwide, and this is also a very large ticket item within this, a nationwide training and internship apprenticeship program that's going to touch upon all of the existing school as well as this new expansion of schools that we're operating into. We are looking at another part of it, which is looking at, which is going to be promoting alternative energy sources for energy intensive industries, particularly focus on demonstration. So we're going to be partnering with a lot of our small and medium sized clients to demonstrate various innovations and enhancements that are, whether it's decarbonization or water use or productivity enhancement. We're looking at soon to be commercialized R&D. We're not talking about R&D that's focusing on cross-cutting early stage stuff. This is towards the end of the TRL ladder, and there's going to be a big component of focus on R&D that can be used for small and medium-sized applications, particularly in a retrofit context or implementation. Could be smart manufacturing, could be industrial controls, anything like that. And then there's other elements of it that are again expanding the reach and extent for the clearinghouse functions. And then lastly, there is a very large, it's specified in the bill, bipartisan infrastructure law, we call it bill. 400 million is going to be available for facilities to actually co-fund implementation of assessment results, assessment recommendations that are coming out of the IACs or some of our partners, whether it's the CHP TAPs or other folks that meet certain criteria. So that's something that's very exciting for us, is to stand up this rather sizable implementation grant program. All right, next slide. I think that's it. Yes, any questions? Happy to respond to you either obviously today when we get to that point, and I'm always ready to, if you want to shoot me an email or give me a call if you want to talk about the program, if you want to set up an assessment, if you're interested in that. Oh, one minor thing I will add, as a part of the recent FOA that we competed, we launched a commercial buildings pilot at 9 of our universities that are working with community colleges in their area to conduct assessments of commercial building space, not industrial space. So we are working with our partners over in Buildings Technology Office, as well as our existing centers, to see how this rollout of commercial building activities takes place. Anyways, that just popped into my head right now. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Going to talk to you a little bit about who Custom Glass Solutions is. We're a glass fabricator. We have operations in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, Fostoria, Ohio, Trombowersville, Pennsylvania, and Cameron Glass in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. We're a relatively new company. We split away from a larger company, which some folks may know was Guardian Industries. And we produce all kinds of glass products, from both windshields to washer and dryer lids, heavy truck, RV, a lot of rail, and we are also starting in and producing some ballistic glass. So we have a lot of that going on right now. Our company is growing, and as we grow, we definitely look at how much energy we're consuming. Next slide, please. Just a quick view on one of these. What you're seeing is just a glimpse into a couple of our processes right now. The energy that goes into forming glass is just enormous. I mean, you have to heat that. You have to bend it. You have to control the temperature when it's going up and when it's coming down. So at CGS, we really focus in a lot. As the environmental manager, I got involved years ago because we have customers that want us to be compliant to ISO 14000 2015 standards. And if you're familiar with those standards, there are some requirements in there to look at how you spend your energy. What are you putting it into? Are you taking that into consideration when you're doing projects? How is that affecting the community as a whole? What are you doing that could affect your neighbors? So we take a look at a whole lot of that. We are buying purchased flat glass. So that comes in from a float plant. We bring that in, we warehouse a lot of that material, we cut all these different patterns and shapes out of it, and then it ends up being formed to whatever our customers' needs are and sold. When you see the images and the pictures below, that glass is a side window going into most likely a heavy truck, and that glass is at a temperature of about 650 to 660 degrees Fahrenheit. So you see that kind of energy going in there every day into the products. You really want to start paying some attention to it, make sure you're getting a good value into it. We got involved with Better Plants because one of our customers, Volvo, was talking to one of our salespeople and said, hey, maybe you guys ought to look at this. It sounds like something you're already doing. And we did. We looked into it. We found a lot of great opportunities in there. We're looking at taking more advantages to some of the programs that are out there. But we've been in it a while with some other entities. American Electric Power, you probably heard of that company. Industrial energy users, we've been part of that. There are a lot of subcontractor companies out there that we work with, all with the goal of making sure that we can control how we use our energy. Next slide, please. So when you look at the slide below, what you're seeing on that is a actual energy consumption in our main facility. And as you look at that, you see that waveform pattern starting. The grayed out area to the left is weekends. So we know pretty good what our energy profile is. And we knew that for almost all of the sites, and we're working on bringing on the last one probably within the next 6 months. We're putting those energy into the products that we're doing, making sure that we're making it as efficiency as we can. We know and understand how we're affecting the grid. So what you're seeing there is also part of the East Coast grid. So it's not just what's going on in Ohio, it's what's going on from way up along the East Coast and down into, I believe, the Carolinas, and all the way over through Ohio and I think some areas of Indiana. But we look at this and we study what are the costs. Costs can drive your programs. So if you're looking at doing something, you're going to put in a big piece of equipment, you should know what your energy costs are at any given time. If you were to ask, we could say, hey, you know, we know what the price is right now in this location. We'll run a calculation for you, and the engineering department and accounting department would look at that, and they would really know what the value is on that. Do we want to spend extra money on making sure that we have electrical meters on there? The answer is probably going to be yes. Is additional insulation or motor starting systems are all of those things that we could invest more into to reduce the energy. So we look at that at pretty much every project that's over a set level. And I think John talked about it earlier on the recovery of the expense. We're looking at 3 years on most of them. But when we start looking at energy, we find that it's not a 3-year wait. It's usually under a year that you can get some of those monies back for the programs that you're trying to do. So really knowing what your waveform is for a site really helps you. Now, if you're thinking about an industrial site, makes good sense, but this also works out well if you're running an apartment complex, an office complex, knowing all of those things. What does that actually look like? Know what that building is being used for, at any given time of the day, any day of the week, and especially on holidays, because you're going to be putting money into energy there, and there's probably ways that you could cut down the amount of energy that you're consuming. Again, glass industry is very heavy. We really don't use a whole lot of natural gas. We use heat waste recovery to heat most of our buildings, and it works out very well for us. But there are a lot of things that are coming that we're looking at that are coming down the pike, and we're learning quite a bit from Better Plants on different technologies and how to apply them. Next slide, if you would, please. All right, so in this slide, what we're looking at is again, what's the consumption through a holiday? You want to develop a program on how to reduce the cost, reduce the energy that you're using, lower your carbon footprint, reduce greenhouse gases. All of that stuff comes back and is part of this. When you're looking at how you can affect this, look at when you're not using energy. What do I mean by that? You have a building and nobody's coming and going a lot at 2 to 3 a.m. Can you reduce your lighting loads in common areas? When we look at this, we see that we're going through holidays and we're asking ourselves, where's that energy going? What is being done with it? One of the takeaways that we had from one of the Better Plants meetings is we're talking about air, compressed air consumption. And we hadn't really paid a whole lot of attention to that in the past few years. So we reached out. I think we're on the waiting list to get one of the meters to come into one of our sites and take a look at. We did just kind of a quick walkthrough and immediately subcontracted someone to come in and take a look at that. And we are seeing several $1,000s loss. So what you're seeing is a loss that is showing up when production is not in operation, but we can attack the problem during the weekends, start bringing that load down, which again translates into the upper load automatically coming down. Some of that people will refer to as monuments loads. That was one of the things that I believe Oklahoma State University, we've been to some presentations that they had done, and they had talked about some of that. And it really started making sense. You always have to have some form of lighting on. You're always going to have heating and air conditioning in office areas, in break rooms and things like that. So what can you do? Well, you can add motion sensors to lights. You can add air conditioning controls and heating controls to office areas. That'll drop the load down on weekends and holidays when there's nobody around. All those kind of things, they will pay off. They will stop bringing or start bringing down some of the higher consumption areas. We're putting the energy into those products. We're looking at some of these technologies that are coming and how we can apply those into what we're doing. You can see in that chart right there, there's just a lot of energy, and this is just out of one of our sites. And if you're looking at that, please realize that the kW that you're seeing going through there right now is times 1,000. So you can really do some good, lower your carbon footprint, save some costs, and then reinvest those costs into other programs. Curtailment programs for industry, some places that works really well. Back on the first slide, you saw one of our ovens going on there. We can curtail energy down to help meet the requirements of the East Coast grid should something happen. But we have to be considerate of what that does to some of our equipment. If the plant would go dark for some type of an emergency event, substation goes out, heavy storm moves through, we do have to maintain some battery backups and a slight amount of generation to make sure that the equipment's not damaged, because that's also something that has to be considered as you bring these loads down. How do you secure some of your more important areas out there? But if you're looking at really starting out a program from the base, know the value of energy and how you're using it and what the costs are per week. With that type of information, you can really start developing a program, see where you can start addressing things right away. Some of it's probably pretty simple in-house. Some of it's not going to be very simple. When you look at these kinds of things, you know, we are now at the point where we're getting ready to have some auditors come in. We think we've got a lot of the low-hanging fruit out of the way, but we're also looking at what's the next generation coming. What AI technologies are out there that we can take advantage of. So we're seeing a lot of that that's a potential in the future that we're going to take advantage of if we can. And, you know, it's how you look at this. From an environmental standpoint, every time we can reduce load, it's a good thing. Making sure that we're using energy in smart ways, putting it into the products that we produce. When we have opportunities to reduce, great. When you get to the first couple of steps of this, then it gets a little bit harder. Reach out in the community, develop a partnership with somebody who doesn't have a program. Do some volunteer work. Take the knowledge that you've learned and apply it outside. CGS and Upper Sandusky partners with the city of Upper Sandusky. And as we see things that may have an impact on the city or help them, we let them know as they look out and they see things that approach them, people are talking to them. We're taking a look at that information and seeing if we can work it in. We're not in competition with one another. We're trying to work out as a partnership. If you're in the energy field for your business sector, think about things like schools, churches, hospitals, nonprofits out there. They don't have a lot of times resources to do this work, and you can really build some great relationships with this. You do a lot of good for your community. Again, reducing energy is just key for our future as a country. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over. If there's any questions or anything like that, you can reach out through either Bruce or John, and we'll get you some answers. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We do have two questions. So the first one is, are there any requirements for the company size that can participate?
It's for IACs or in general?
I think in general, or different opportunities, are there any?
Okay, well, I mean, for IACs.
For the better plants.
Okay, the better plants is, Bruce, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So there's not really any size requirement. We have some small manufacturers. The main criteria for us is that they're within the NASCS codes for manufacturing. Now, I will say, for most companies that are manufacturing, if their energy costs are less than $100,000 a year, we probably can't help them very much because their energy using systems are probably not going to be very energy intensive. But other than that, you know, we've got, you know, single plant companies as well as big giant ones. So yeah, we can work with a wide variety of them.
And then the next question is, what is the expected time commitment?
For better plants?
Yes.
Okay. So the minimum time requirement is based on the submission of an annual report and regular interaction with the technical account manager. Those are the two things that we expect from the partners. For the annual report, it's a one-page form, and I will mention that we made a specific effort to conform with the Paperwork Reduction Act. So a lot of our forms tend to be one page or one side of one page to really minimize the time burden on the partners. But the annual reporting form is one page, and for most companies, it takes between 1 to 2 hours total to put it together. And the TAMs can help you with that. And then the interaction with the TAMs, usually a half-hour call once a month, and maybe a little less, maybe something more in the beginning. But those are the main time requirements for participating in the program.
All right, and the next question is, do you ever get pushback from the electrical utility company?
Is that also for better plants, or?
I think I don't know if for both, I guess, or if.
I haven't gotten any. If anything, we've had opportunities to connect with some of the energy utilities that want to propose resources to their partners. So we've done webinars once in a while for their industrial and large commercial customers.
And as far as the ICs are concerned, I mean, we routinely partner with our utilities in the area. We often get our referrals from utilities, and there are a handful of ICs that actually bring utility staff with them on assessments occasionally. Now, we are fully aware of the various utility incentives that exist, and that's one of the reasons why we make recommendations, because we're cognizant of those incentives, and they factor into our evaluation of payback periods. So yeah, we are partners with our utilities more than getting pushback from them.
So I guess from the industry side of it, we've never seen any pushbacks. As a matter of fact, they are more than welcome to review what we're doing. Give us, we've even had times when they brought in equipment to monitor the changes that we've made to help us justify doing that. I hear regularly from them about once a month about programs that are out there. I think it really is in what territory you're in. Some areas of the country are a lot more regulated. East Coast versus West Coast versus the central of the country. It's going to be in what territories you have. I've never heard of anybody having any issues, but honestly, I've heard of and had the experience of you can make more phone calls and keep calling them, and until you pester them, they'll finally pick up the phone and have a conversation. Mainly along the East Coast and that territory, that's not a problem. So I've always had good responses with them.
All right, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. But again, we'll be sending out resources after, as well as some contact information. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to follow up. So thanks again, everyone, for attending. And we will be posting this on YouTube. So when you do watch it, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notifications for other recordings that are posted. Thanks again for attending, and have a great rest of your day.